Hey y'all, Corey here. Welcome to my San Antonio, Texas landscape, technically zone 9. It's just about the end of spring here, at least the end of my planting season, as things are starting to get too hot. And so I finished my planting season this morning, and so it felt appropriate that we'd have a garden tour for y'all here to show off some highlights at this time of year of various native plants and adapted plants that we've put in the ground. It's a decent sized property for where we are in proximity to the city. And so there is a lot of space, a lot of work to do, a lot of opportunity. But I want to talk to you about some of the projects that we've executed on already, those to come, and as well as some plants that are doing really quite well here, at least this time of year. First things first, we're gonna start in a back corner of our yard, which really is a blank canvas. Pro and a con to this house is that there was really nothing back here when we moved in. So you can see there outside of the screened-in porch, we do have an outlined garden bed and a mini pond, which I'll show in a moment. But those, we need to do a lot more garden bed construction to provide some more shape and structure to this backyard. In the meantime, there have been some, just kind of independent, obscure plantings that we've wanted to put in the ground here. And these are a pretty rare North American native fruit tree, the Pawpaw, that I received 5 bare root trees, actually from Etsy. And I have a pretty good success rate. So 2 out of 3 in this very close high density planting here have survived. And then I have a planting, 2 others that are doing well elsewhere on the property as well. And so this seems to be a fruit that's well worth cultivating, although it might require some work to get these little ones established in a few years before we can really sample that fruit ourselves. But excited about those as something experimental. Now, a planting we have here off of our AC condensation line here. So we have a native Buttonbush plant. It's yet to bloom, but it is doing really quite well this year. It struggled last year as in our first plantings, really never seemed like it could get enough water. But this year, without watering, of course, besides it coming right off the AC condensation line, we haven't touched it, and it's really seeming to thrive. There will be some little bit of grooming that we'll have to do to pull that off of the AC ultimately, so that it grows more so outwards. But really excited about this as being a good foundation to a planting on the side or the back of the garage here, and the side of our screened-in porch. So that one's doing very well. And then the wildlife pond here with all native aquatic plants. We have an aquatic milkweed, which is in bloom right now, looking really great. A pickler weed, which had a couple blooms for a while, and those have since passed. We're getting a couple of these swamp mallows, which are hibiscus-like flowers that have come in and out. You can see that those are spent at the moment, but we might have a couple others coming in here soon. Back here is the blue flag iris, which had already bloomed when we had gotten it. And then lastly, the lizard's tail. And so a lot of native plants packed in here. And we also have some mosquito fish, the gambusa, swimming around here to help provide some support and make sure that this doesn't become just a mosquito haven. So far, so good. Mosquito population still exists, hasn't gone down to 0, but the fish are active in here. They are a type of species that likes to kind of hide out within rocks and things like that, and so they're sometimes difficult to see, but they are in here. And evaporation is without a doubt an issue, or just a challenge. We've had to add maybe 2 to 4 gallons of water to this basin each week so far, and so we'll see when we really get into peak summertime. Hopefully, we can get the occasional summer rain, although that is not always likely. But this wildlife pond, this mini pond here, has certainly been a success and a fun little project for us to add some versatility to our landscape. And then definitely a focal point as we want to establish a bit of a patio out here and a curling bed right along the side of the screened-in porch and back of the garage there. Before we depart from this part of the backyard, I do want to draw attention to the chili pekin, or the Texas bird pepper, that we have here just growing in mass. It's why it, honestly, while it looks chaotic back here and pretty weedy and scraggly, it is worth sometimes just letting things grow to see what you have. And this continues that, we've had this patch before in our area of Texas. Things will get cold enough to where this will die back in the winter, and so we will have to cut it back. This is mixed with a non-native lantana that butterflies still seem to frequent, but this will be absolutely just profuse with red little chilies later this year. And so we may transplant this if we like. It's hard to avoid these starting to pop up elsewhere in our property. These had been popping up even before I had done a planting in the front of the yard. That's what happens with those chili pekins. The birds love them, and they will, drop them underneath where they're eating them up in the trees. And so, if you're okay with a little bit of disorganization and volunteers coming up, it's fun to see. Let's see, to the back of our guest house here, very quickly, shots of these other two bare root pawpaws that we received from online. Those are doing just fine. We have a small American persimmon hanging on here, doing just fine in some pretty decent sun. And then our rock rose here has done really, really well. We are in late afternoon, so the blooms start to close back in, but in the mornings you'll see this more so popping out. It looks a little wilty in the heat of the afternoon, but it is growing rather tremendously, and these flowers do pop out and are quite enjoyable to see each morning. So those have done really, really quite well. Likewise here, some plantings from last fall. We have indigo spires, a type of salvia that has really, really done very well in this spot here, just kind of in a water collection area off the back of our guest house here. Not to mention the inland sea oats. We certainly didn't plant this many when we put them in, but they have just absolutely gone gangbusters on the edge of that AC condensation line. So, something to think about too, if you're thinking about what can handle that kind of persistent and constant water. The inland sea oats are a good option for that. We'll have to strategize how it is that we can control them and then maybe distribute those seeds elsewhere, but clearly with a bit of water, and they're in some decent sun as well, which I thought them mostly to be a shade plant, they are doing really rather incredibly. So that's pretty fun to see. We have various Texas sage here that are kind of bushing out a bit. These don't rarely bloom. I have a feeling that that's with maybe a lack of sun, maybe some poor drainage in the soil. It is clay soil, and so we don't have great drainage here. We have to think about that sometimes, and Texas sage does like stuff quite rocky and quite dry, although more gravelly soils do exist in the front of our yard. We have some wax myrtles here, southern wax myrtles that we put in, which should establish themselves. We have a couple of fall aster transplants from a really, really healthy plant in our front yard that we've moved. That's a very, very fun thing as plants start to take off and do well. You try to see what it is that you can multiply and divide and propagate. Another chili pekin here right on the edge of our mature, beautiful Anaqua tree, which bloomed quite well this spring. Now is into its berry stage, and to be honest, all mayhem is gonna break loose because birds and squirrels love them, and there's tons and tons of berries that then drop on this back patio here. Apparently we can make a jam out of the Anaqua berries, so be sure to subscribe and wait for the video that we'll do on that in the future. See, last thing here before we leave the backyard, the fig tree that was here when we moved in, I did some significant pruning of this tree because it hadn't produced any figs in the last year that we lived here. It had really grown quite big. It is an interesting looking tree. I do like the leaves, but you know, it's too fun to be able to get as much fruit as you can off of trees like this. You can see this was a big protruding branch that I ended up trimming off to then make this fig a bit more compact, but it's still absolutely taken off, and so controlling this will be a challenge. We'll see if I'll take off some of that new growth in the summer to try and keep this a little bit shorter, but you know, at least right now I'm pretty pleased to see a lot of young figs coming onto the tree here, hopefully ready to harvest later this year. We'll head to the front now, actually, but before we do, put a number of good native vines in here on this existing chain link. You know, a little bit of a wrecked, you know, worse for wear chain link, to be honest, between us and the guest house. But while we wait in some regard for this native Yaupon holly that we planted there to really extend and fill this gap between the Anaqua tree and the house there in this patio, to give privacy to the various guests that we have here, and as well ourselves, you know, on this porch. We planted a Yaupon holly, but also have planted a lot of native vine, Virginia creeper, which can be pretty aggressive, you know, so we'll see how we can handle it. Most vines are, though. Cross vine, which bloomed rather nicely this spring. We have some Mustang grape here down below. Among all the Anaqua offshoots, they are absolutely prolific, just everywhere. And further down there, we put in some coral honeysuckle, which is doing quite well, another cross vine too, and some trumpet creepers, which have grown to be a bit bushy. Don't really love the look of them, kind of bushed out and stuff, and you know, and so if anyone knows about that, you know, feel free to let me know why that might be happening. But those have kind of grown out in a way that I don't love. But other than that, we have had a lot of new vines put in the ground, and we'll be excited to see how that helps shape this fence in a more interesting way. Don't love a chain link fence, but it does make for a good trellis. So moving on to some highlights in the front yard here, we'll start with a mulberry tree, which seemed to have been taken down by the previous owner a while back, but it just keeps coming back. And so finally we've let it grow out. We wanted to see exactly what it was, and I do believe this is a mulberry. Given its proximity to this guest house here, I will probably continue to prune it up top. It's a pretty fast growing, but I'll try and prune it up top to keep it as much as a mulberry bush as possible. And likewise here, we have some fun happenings that I noticed today. Just looks like we had a hatching of a particular caterpillar that I think might end up being a moth, but they're just devouring the mulberry plant here, which is fine by me. I'll end up, you know, pruning this off as they all become crystallized and ultimately moth or butterfly, whatever they're going to become. I'm not familiar with which one. We'll see if they take the whole tree down with it. This thing is pretty relentless, so I'm not too worried about it. We have started a new pollinator garden here in the front of this guest yard. Got the sheet mulch down, got all the plants in the ground. I do have to apply some polish, get the rest of a clean layer of mulch down, and a good border to make this look much better. And you know, most importantly, I really celebrate when we can get rid of some grass, and so this is another nice chunk here of grass that we got to remove and interesting plants that we got to put in the ground. So this pond here will likewise, this basin will be a pond. We have a few vines that are going to trellis up that, hopefully provide a little bit of shade here or there. We might create an extension up top to provide some sort of covering and allow some of the vines to kind of drop down beneath it. That will be inspired by our wildlife pond in the back as well. We'll do something similar. Have some nice volunteer common sunflowers, which are in bloom right now and full of activity. You know, pollinators, butterflies and bees and wasps frequenting them. You know, we'll let them spend, and we'll see likewise if birds come to eat them. We did do a lot of covering and more mowing this year, just because things got a little bit out of control last year, and you know, we're trying to be on good terms with our neighbors, but I'm glad to see that the sunflowers still found a way to come up, and kind of interestingly in a more organized fashion. So it seems like we were in alignment with nature this year somehow. We do have some fennel, which is doing really rather incredibly. Each year, fennel does attract some really fat Gulf fritillary caterpillars. Likewise this year it did, but this has just absolutely taken over this basin as this fennel has gone to flower. There is a pomegranate tree in there. You know, I've overplanted this obviously, and so I got to strategize what it is that I might do with this in the future to maybe not choke out one or the other, but it is fun to see that fennel come back as it died back in the winter and really do so well this year. We have flame acanthus in a variety of positions that's done quite well. This was pruned and trimmed, and so was this. You can see that this basin gets a little bit less sun than that one. That's in a more direct sun. But also right now, so worth paying attention to just the absolute buzzing activity that's taking place with this frog fruit. So this frog fruit here, we planted maybe 3 plants or so in the bottom of this rainwater harvesting basin, which is to, you know, off a slope here on our driveway. And the frog fruit has just absolutely taken off. And so you can see the myriad of little butterflies and wasps and bees, all variety of pollinators that just come to love this stuff. And the frog fruit is really quite happy right now. It's kind of crawling up that Copper Canyon daisy, which is interesting. We're going to see the full extent of this frog fruit and see if we need to tame it at all or not, or you know, if it will be just fine. But this combination of maybe a little bit higher water intake and likewise a little more shade, but still decent sun, it's really seemed to be optimal for the frog fruit here. This Mexican plum was a young tree planted at the same time as this Texas redbud over here, but it got hit by a car. I salvaged the tree, turned cuttings in, and was able to grow another Mexican plum tree, which I was able to plant elsewhere on the property. So, you know, in that there's a bit of a pro to that situation, that it's a nurse plant, or excuse me, a mother plant for all the future Mexican plums we can grow off of that to come. Now this basin's doing pretty well as well. We got inland sea oats on the innermost part of it. One from seed, the left side, ones that we just kind of planted out of the nursery, just transplanted them in. We have an elbow bush here, Mexican buckeye, catmint that's just blooming rather profusely this year. So, you know, performance is really going strong on this berm too. Coralberry here is just thriving. We see it spreading down beneath, or down on the surface to almost, you know, everywhere in this basin, starting to reach out to others. So the coralberry here is doing really well. And our Turk's cap has just shot out this year too, and starting to get some of our initial flowers. One of those Turk's caps didn't survive for whatever reason, but these ones did come back, and again, combination of a little bit higher water, you know, it's higher sun, so it's a little bit wilty, which can happen to Turk's cap in all that sun, but it is really doing quite well this year. A redbud tree here had some blooms. It's really leafing out nicely this year. Agarita in this basin, chili pekin in this basin, and then the fall aster, which, you know, it's a bit leggy and stretched out here. You can prune it back, is my understanding, but, you know, I'm not too concerned with it. I did enjoy the look last year, and, you know, maybe we'll do it different next year. But we're starting to get some initial blooms, that fall aster, and when it is all kind of fully in bloom, it's really, really exceptional. Then we have our Anacacho orchid tree, which bloomed really, really nicely this year. We're now on to the seed pods, which, you know, if you're interested, is something you can harvest later on. We have Zexmenia at the base, which we added this year. That's doing quite well. Have a lot of polish to put on these berms. Gonna add some mulch, clean them up, make sure they're all nice and weeded. Might find a way to add some landscaping paper or sheet mulch to keep the weeds down. And then final here, we'll talk a bit about the home orchard, the food forest that we're establishing. We're mostly just on to tree plantings right now. It looks a bit scraggly around here, but we're starting to create some shape with some initial beds. And so this is a big objective of ours over the course of the next 12 months, certainly over the course of the summer as seems appropriate, is to start to shape what this home orchard will look like. We have a Barbados cherry tree. We have a Dorset golden apple tree. We have an Anna apple tree here. We have a Techstar peach. We were able to get a couple peaches off of that. This is, none of these trees have been in the ground more than a calendar year here. This, I believe, we planted this spring, but got a couple of delicious peaches off of that, which was fun. Our son loved them. Have some apples on that Dorset golden. Many have gotten to the insects first, so we're just kind of leaving them to keep them satisfied. We have a La Feliciana peach tree. We have a couple of pear trees. I believe we have an Orient pear and a Kiefer pear. Here we have a Mulberry tree, which we had a few berries, but ants got to them rather quickly. Had low expectations this year, but it's grown decently. It's unfortunately had to be staked. I tried to replicate something on the edge of a waterway here, but I don't think I planted it as securely as I should have. And then last over there, we do have a desirable pecan tree. So there are pecan trees in this neighborhood, but we did want to add one more, ideally starting to provide some more shade and really this hot direct sun area. Although given the slope, we're anticipating that we'll still get enough sun for many of these fruit trees in the orchard. We have one pear here available. We'll see if that's going to be something edible later in the year, unless the insects get to it. But excited about the orchard. Have a big hugelkultur mound experiment to come here in that roundabout. Many more beds to lay and pathways to create to give this something of a more organized feel. Those are some of the highlights for me this spring. A lot of new plantings, a lot of new plants in the ground. Fall, really when it is actually fall, a bit cooler up until spring. It's really all about getting plants in the ground for me as much as possible, just because summer makes it near impossible. There's not much more fun than getting new plants in the ground and starting to chart their progress over time, see how things do, see what does well, what doesn't, what might need to be moved, what can be propagated and played around with. But this summer for me is more so about polish, and infrastructure, starting to set up beds, set up more rainwater harvesting barrels to get ourselves ready for the next rain when it does come. We did have a good rain this spring and didn't take advantage of that as much as I would like to. However, there's only so much that can be done. So we'll be focusing on cleaning up many of the projects and beds and things that we've started as we threw in plantings. And so to give our landscape here a much more cleaner, polished look as things continue to develop and evolve over time. All right, y'all, that's all I got for you this time in this spring garden tour. Obviously, a lot more plants that I could talk about. If you want to catch up on more specific Texas native plant videos or some of the projects that I've accomplished already, feel free to look back at older videos, and I'll make sure and have some of those linked directly in the description down below. But make sure to subscribe to the channel and keep up with our landscape here in San Antonio, Texas. And of course, as always, welcome to suggestions, ideas, and feedback if there's anything that you noticed that we might benefit from. All right, y'all.